works like magic. Good morning.
Good morning.
Another Sunday has come around, another month has come around, and on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills, I welcome you. I'm the Reverend Margret O'Neill. My pronouns are she, her. Describing myself for inclusivity, I'm a white person in my elder years. My hair is about chin length, kind of light brown with silver highlights, which I've earned every one of them. And I'm wearing a black robe with my stole that has snowflakes on one side and green on the other, as we are in this time of the changing seasons. It's my honor and privilege to serve this UU Congregation of the Catskills, and I'm so very glad to be here with you on your amazing and complicated journey these days. You'll hear more from me later, but now our worship associate, Virginia Lawler, will provide a welcome and update on all the wonderful things that are happening here. Virginia.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Virginia Lawler. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm glad to be your worship associate this morning. Optional description for inclusion. I'm a white woman in my mid-40s with brown hair, and I have a striped shirt on and a black sweater and glasses. We welcome you this morning, for those of you here in the sanctuary, as those of you on Zoom. If you're new here in person and new to this congregation, a member of our welcoming team, that's Rob. Where's Rob? Oh, hello. See Rob if you're new here. And also we have a guest book that we would love you to sign to get on our email list. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can visit our website, uucatskills.org, to find contact information and the latest newsletter. And you can scroll to the bottom of the page to find out for the form to be added to our email news list. A reminder that people of all ages, children, young and old, are welcome here at UU Catskills. If you find that you need to move your body and get out of your chair a little bit, the space over here in the kitchen and refreshment area is available. After the service, please stay for in-person refreshments for a time of connection, or if you're on Zoom. We do have one announcement this morning. Mark your calendars and spread the word. The last Sunday worship in the sanctuary here on Sauk Hill Road will be next week, February 9th. And our first Sunday worship at 474 Broadway will be 2 weeks from today, Sunday, February 16th. So, big moves happening. Please also see the back of your order of service. There is quite a few announcements. We're looking for coffee hosts. There's still a clothing drive. Black History Month is coming. A lot of fun things happening. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We are a religion centered in love. We draw on many sources of wisdom and inspiration as we seek to understand the world, the universe, and the mystery beyond all human knowing. At UU Catskills, we seek to live our values in every part of our lives. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. We are a welcoming and affirming congregation of the LGBTQ+ community. We are a congregational affiliate of the Ulster Immigrant Defense Network. And we are an active voice in the effort to address climate change. Our sanctuary is built on the tribal land of the Lenni Lenape people. Please take a moment to turn off your electronic devices and give yourself permission to be fully present here now. Our prelude this morning is 4 Fleeting Pieces by Clara Schulman, played by Cattabiani.
Thank you, Catherine. It's so lovely to honor women composers from a time when women composers weren't always honored. I invite the children to come forward for our chalice lighting. And yeah, we need the flame rekindled. Do we have a flame kindler around? I'm gonna try it here. Virginia, could you help with the flame, please?
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Come on, everybody, so make room for all the children, including the shorter ones. All right, okay. So as the children are passing the candle so that everybody participates in the chalice lighting, I invite you to join me in the words of the chalice lighting, which are in your order of service. We light this chalice in grateful, loving community. Even in the darkest of times, may its flame light paths to courage, justice, and hope. And now join me in our unison affirmation. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated, but connected to the universe, in mystery and miracle, in the universe, in community, and in each other. I call us into worship this morning with words by Reverend Erica Hewitt, to be a Unitarian Universalist. To be a Unitarian Universalist means we'll never be done with the work of telling the truth about oppression, the work of resisting any laws, policies, or practices that deny anyone their humanity, the work of stubbornly seeking out the spark of the divine in each other, no matter what the work of creating heaven on earth. To be a Unitarian Universalist also means we're not alone in the work. We're not alone because of our promises to love one another. We're not alone because we are companions on the journey. We grow ourselves into allies, helping one another get free, because none of us is truly free until we are all free. So may it be. And now, in the power of our faith in these changing seasons, let us rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 51, if you had a hymnal. And we'll use the words on the screen since the hymnals are already over on Broadway. So our opening hymn is Lady of the Season's Laughter. Catherine will play it through once so everybody gets the tune, and then we'll sing it together. Please be seated. So, who knows what today is? Groundhog Day. And who knows what happened this morning at 7:26 in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania? He saw his shadow. So, buckle up. We're in for 6 more weeks of winter. Groundhog Day. So, Groundhog Day, in the earth-centered traditions, today is a cross-quarter day. It's midway between the solstice and the equinox. So technically, winter begins in the winter solstice, Yule, the longest hours of night, the start of the year. So who was here in December when we jumped the Yule log? And made rattles and drums and bells and all sorts of celebration of Yule. So, and at that time, what did we do as we stepped over the Yule log? We set our intentions for the coming year. So, spring begins, not now, but at the spring equinox, when the hours of day and night are balanced. And it's still 6 weeks away. So it's been 6 weeks since Yule and 6 weeks to spring. So this is the middle point between Yule and the spring. So for those of you that are not familiar with groundhogs, the groundhog is a small, well, not really small, a fairly large furry animal, also sometimes called a woodchuck, lives in a burrow underground, and he comes out today to look around. If the day is sunny, he sees his shadow and goes back inside to hibernate some more. So that means spring will not be early, but on schedule, 6 weeks from now. If it's cloudy and he doesn't see his shadow when he comes out, that means we'll have warm weather ahead of schedule, what we might call an early spring. Does that sound backwards to you somehow? That he goes back in if it's sunny? But that's how they do it. So we know that climate change, who are our climate change team, our climate change activists here, we know that climate change is making everything warmer overall. So even though it still gets really cold in the winter, the groundhog may be getting less sleep in the years to come. We also know that the seeds under the ground and the daffodil and crocus bulbs, even the trees, now they're starting to get ready for spring since it takes them time. So that's what Groundhog Day, which is also called Imbolc or St. Bridget's Day, is all about, is that the earliest beginning of spring, deep underground. So I'm gonna do a little imagining with us all to get us in the spirit of the season. So let's imagine that we are trees. So I invite you you can stand up if you want to be a tree like this, or you can sit down and just put your feet on the ground and imagine that you're a tree. And it's cold, and your roots go way down deep. Now imagine that way down deep, the energy is starting to stir, just beginning to stir. You know, it's so interesting. This is a not for children only. Apparently, it's not for children at all. Come on, kids, get into the spirit of the thing.
It's not for children, though, is it?
Only. Maybe we'll change the name of it. Maybe it's misleading. All right, so imagine now the energy is starting to move, starting to waken, beginning deep underground and coming up, so that as the energy rises, as the sap starts to flow, as the people that collect the sap from the maples, the sugar maples, start to go out and tap to catch that rising sap, that sweet energy is flowing up and into your branches, and your buds are just starting to form. Not flowers yet, because they could still get frozen. The buds are just starting to form. So now, let's imagine that we are seeds or bulbs. So you can sit back down to be a seed or a bulb because you're going to want to curl up. So yeah, Jake's already doing the cedar bulb thing here. So
The entire time.
you could be a crocus. Okay, good, AJ. Good bulb. So crocus, hyacinth, daffodil, sunflower, zinnia, coneflower, tomato, bean, cucumber, whatever kind of seed or bulb you'd like to be. So just imagine yourself curled up in a very, very, very small space with a hard shell, so that you're all the potential for the whole plant is curled up in a very, very, very small space. Now, imagine that that part of you knows that it's roots, and it's starting to go down, starting to come out of the shell and make its way down to find its nourishment deep down in the soil. And part of you knows that it's shoots and leaves and going to be flowers and is starting to come up. And so imagine yourself coming out of the shell, ready to become a flower or a tomato plant or an eggplant or whatever kind of plant you'd like to be. A pumpkin, excellent. So all that potential is in the seed. And those of you that are gardeners know that some seeds are really, really tiny. Like so small that you can hardly see them and it's hard to keep track of them if you're planting them.
Like broccoli.
And some things like daffodils, like the bulbs are like this big, right? So there's all and some of the tiniest seeds grow into some of the biggest plants. So all those mysteries. So that's all happening around us. Now, while the earth is still frozen, while it's a little risky to go out and step outside because the puddles of water have frozen, something in us can begin to stir as well. So imagine that you have roots deep inside you. What is stirring now? What is stirring around those intentions that you set? New Year's resolutions or your Yule log intentions? Think about what is stirring now in you that's ready to be born. And that is the promise of Imbolc, the promise of Groundhog Day, as we prepare to move through the next 6 weeks and get ready for spring. And now we will sing our children to their classes, and Samara and Jillian are here to go with them. So Samara, this is Samara's first day. And Jillian has been with us for a while, so very, very exciting. And so let's sing the children out. And now as the children go in quietly and good order to their spaces, all the enthusiasm of youth, all that energy rising from their roots. We take this time to reflect on our personal joys and sorrows and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. This is a time to briefly share the personal events of our lives, and there may be many voices wishing to speak today, so we'll keep our messages relatively brief. And if you wish to share in more detail, if you'd like to talk to me or to anyone else, you're welcome to do that. You can always arrange a time to have a deeper conversation with me. So before I take the microphone around, I have a couple of joys and sorrows that have been shared with me. We have sad news to share. Many of you saw the notice that went out this week. Beloved member Judy Goodman passed away this past Thursday, January 30th. She was in hospice care, and so it's not a big surprise, but it's a huge loss to our community. And our love is with Judy's grandson, Austin, Judy's daughter, Christina Irwin, her brother, Peter Goodman, and Austin's other grandmother, Judy Irwin. There are no plans for a memorial service at this time, and we will celebrate Judy's life by being in community as she was. And a joy. Daniel Leota has been accepted into the UUA's Commissioned Lay Ministry program with the support of me and the board, in which she will deepen her grounding in Unitarian Universalism and her skills in serving this congregation and our larger faith tradition. This is great honor for Danielle and for the congregation. She'll be in a program of study for somewhere from 2 to 4 years. Knowing Danielle, she'll probably do it in a year and a half. But however long it takes, we will support her and be with her in the process. And so I invite you to congratulate her and to share after the service. There is cake. So after the service, we have a celebratory cake that's been generously provided to honor Danielle's achievement. She's going to work hard for this, so it's not a simple process, and I very much look forward to being her partner in her emerging. There are many sorrows and joys among us, and so, and they're not all spoken, and they're not all ready to come into the light, and so I place a stone of sorrow and a stone of joy for all the deep prayers of our hearts and minds. For our reflection, I offer words adapted from Deborah Weiner's prayer in winter. O Spirit of life and love, we pause for a moment on this wintry day to reflect on the changes that are emerging in our lives. We celebrate the feast of Imbolc, the pagan holiday that heralds the coming of spring. Our hearts stir with the thoughts that lambs are being born, that the light is increasing, that across this hemisphere the earth has begun to stir from its winter sleep. We bow to the forces of nature that have stirred again and again, that remind us through storms and sudden changes in our weather that we are not in charge, that the earth is moved by jet streams, polar vortices, and Alberta clippers, and we must endure and be patient. And through it all, we are reminded again and again that we are not alone. May we continue to recognize that in this spiritual home, we are held. In this house of memory and hope, we will be welcomed and supported. In this temple of celebration and contemplation, we may bring all of who we are and be both honored and affirmed. For all this and all that will come in the days ahead, we say amen and blessed be. Gathering into our hearts all that has been spoken and all that remains unspoken among us, let us hold a time of silence for our inmost prayers and wishes. For the love we share, for the support we provide, for the work we do together, we say amen and blessed be.
Each week, we take a plate collection to benefit the congregation and the community. Any contributions that are placed in the basket without specific instructions will be shared. Half to benefit the congregation, and the other half to support 8 organizations in Kingston and Ulster County who serve those in need and create community resources. There are several ways to give. Place cash or check in the basket when it's passed. Give electronically using the QR code in your order of service, or by going to uucatskills.org and clicking Donate in the drop-down menu. If you wish your donation to be in the basket to go towards your membership pledge or to be used only by the congregation, you can use an envelope from the basket with the name and purpose of your donation written on the envelope, or make a note in the memo line of your check. For the love and support we share with the world, please give generously. Our offertory music this morning is 3 Little Pieces, number 1 by Robert Schulman, played by Catherine Cattabiani. Ushers.
In gratitude for the generosity which is one of the core values of our faith, generosity of spirit, generosity of resources, generosity of commitment, and caring for the world. Thank you. And so we come to midwinter. This is the mid-season interlude when we ride the roller coaster of weather, swinging into spring for a day or two. Don't put away your coat, because then we slide back down to where winter seems to hold on forever, with sun and rain and snow in the forecast on and off in the coming days. It is now that we look to the groundhog to see his shadow or not, to tell us when spring will arrive, though perhaps he cannot say how many more Arctic blasts and blizzards will come and go before the season forms. Humans throughout the centuries have noted this date, the cross quarter that marks the halfway point between the winter solstice, or Yule, and the spring equinox, or Ostara, on the wheel of the year. It is now we look for signs that the season is turning, watching the behavior of hibernating animals like the badger and the bear, and Phil the groundhog over in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, which is a real place. I actually know somebody who's from there. If the day is sunny and the critter sees its shadow and goes back to hibernation for 6 more weeks of winter, oh, that's the way it is. Some religious traditions have called this day St. Bridget's Feast, or Candlemas, where the earth-centered traditions name it as Imbolc. Historians tell us that the celebration of Imbolc originates from the Celts and dates back to the pre-Christian era in the British Isles. The earliest memories of Imbolc in Irish literature were found in the 10th century. From an agricultural perspective, it's when farmers and gardeners start to prepare for the coming of spring, ordering our seed catalogs, checking the bulbs that have overwintered, and then we bury our little pods of promise and potential in the ground and wait for them to take root. We start to see buds on the trees and the stirring of the early spring flowers, like the snowdrop. Around this time of year, many herd animals give birth to their first offspring of the year. Flowers, eggs, rabbits, lambs, all the fertility symbols get their start right here at Imbolc. While some people focus their celebrations on the goddess Bridget, who awakens the trees from their winter slumber, others focus more on the shift of seasons, moving from the rest and hibernation of deep winter into the blossoming life force of spring. Emerging from our caves of hibernation, like the groundhog or the bear, evokes the image of spring cleaning as we prepare for the season of light and growth. After a long, hard winter of being cold, damp, and stuck inside, it's nice to finally get outside and let our doors and windows swing wide on their rusty hinges, inviting the cleansing presence of the light and air. This can also be a spiritual process as we release any anxieties, fears, or resentments which no longer serve us. It's a great time to make way for new things that will be coming our way, both physically and spiritually. The Seasonal Soul blog reminds us that, quote, this is the time to clear out the dirty old clutter and the things that withered or died within us during the winter in order to prepare for exciting new growth to come. This is a time of leaving what is safe and comfortable in order to grow more fully into yourself. The celebration of Imbolc reminds us to pause and remember the intentions we set when we cross the Yule log to mark the beginning of a new year, and to look inward and think about what we would like to accomplish in the season ahead. Imbolc is a time for us to take what we've learned and apply it to new endeavors, new growth, and new beginnings as the wheel of the year turns. We are in a time of change within us and all around us, change that is physical, change that is emotional and spiritual, changes we may hold in common among us, and yet each of us experiences within our own unique being. We live in a world that is transforming moment to moment in ways we experience directly, in other ways that are far from our grasp. We live in a nation that is grappling with deep division and distrust, seeking a new way forward amid dissent and disruption. And this congregation, a community, a home, and a source of comfort over the years, is moving this month into a new space with all the emotion, all the challenge and possibility that any big change can bring. As we move through the changes and await the enlivening energy of spring, we open our senses and our spirits to the light and air as we prepare for what is emerging within us and in the world. Now is the time to be aware of our roots, where and how they are planted, deep with seeds and bulbs resting in the darkness of the soil. This is the time to nurture the deep roots, send energy into the bulbs and seeds, and patiently wait for the sprouts to break the surface, new leaves to unfurl and emerge into the bright air. As a Unitarian Universalist, I find my spiritual and sustaining roots in the promise and the premise of this abundant faith tradition. This is a time of challenge and change as we seek even more deeply to live into our values, to resist the forces that seek to undermine the fundamentals of our social contract, to support those who are at risk in this toxic environment, to mobilize resources for those who are harmed by the rollbacks in vital support systems. Now is the time to resist, to mobilize, and to hold firmly to the core commitments of our faith. As your minister, I experience also the roots that are grounded here in the love and commitment of this congregation, the essence of beloved community that has been nurtured over the decades. And now this congregation of love and connection is moving into a new space. The physical relocation of the congregation brings many varieties of emotional experience. For some, it is a time of anticipation as new possibilities await for community connection and service. For others, the move represents a release of burdens of the responsibility of caring for this large and aging property. And for others, the emotional experience is one of deep loss as relationships and events have woven a tapestry of memory that wraps around the farmhouse, the sanctuary, and the land on which they rest. And so that raises the question, where are the roots that ground and nurture us as Unitarian Universalists and as members of this congregation in this time of societal unrest, in this time of physical relocation, in this time of emerging from known spaces into something new? I recall to us the words from Reverend Erica Hewitt in our call to worship. To be a Unitarian Universalist means we'll never be done with the work of telling the truth about oppression, the work of resisting, of stubbornly seeking out the spark of the divine, the work of creating heaven on earth. Because to be a Unitarian Universalist also means we're not alone in the work. We're not alone because of our promises to love one another. We're not alone because we are companions on the journey. We grow ourselves into allies helping one another get free, because none of us is truly free until we are all free. Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, a wise and courageous leader of our faith in the mid-1800s, wrote words that have been set to music as a hymn, "Be Ours a Religion." And I invite us to sing that together now as a meditation on the foundation of our faith, the deep roots that nourish us in these times. Catherine will play it through once, and then we will sing it twice in a spirit of reflection, paying attention to the words as we follow the words on the screen. Once is enough. You want to sing it again? Let's sing it again. Our places and our spaces are important to us, and at the same time, our temple is all space. Our ritual is works of love that we bring to each other and the world. Our religion is like sunshine, going everywhere, bringing light to nourish the world. And so our values and commitments, our connections and promises and companionship, these are the ground where our real roots are planted. And these are the roots we must nourish, especially in these times of challenge and change. The first movements of change happen underground and in the dark while the world is still preparing for full spring. And that is where we are during this time of the year. The final grip of winter hasn't quite fallen away, but we can begin doing the underground work, the dreaming and scheming, the organizing and connecting, so we can be prepared to bloom in the spring and summer when the earth is finally ready for us in all our glory. Seeds take the first step to becoming what they will grow into by breaking out of their seed coating and stretching a root and the beginning of their first leaf. Through some biochemical magic, they know which is root and which is leaf and how they need to grow either up or down, but they both start underground in the dark, stretching toward their future. Trees take their first steps toward the awakening of spring by inviting the sap to rise, stimulated not by warmth, because the warmth isn't here yet, but simply by the presence of more daylight at the surface. And this is the time when we, like a seed, like a tree, have the opportunity to deepen and grow our roots and feel grounded, to extend our shoots toward the surface of possibility, to invite our vital energy to rise so that we may stretch into the possibility of what could be. And now is the time to do some discernment. And so I ask, how do you need to be grounded? Where do you need to stretch to reach the surface and touch the sky? For me, Imbolc is a season of deep spirituality where I can sink into the welcoming dark and silence within my spirit, connecting with the spiritual seeds of new growth in my life. This is a time to nourish the tiny roots, the vulnerable roots that stretch into that dark silence to find their sources of inspiration, and the tender shoots that reach for the light of discovery and new directions. With the nights still long, mornings dawning slowly, and evenings still coming early, Imbolc is a season to pause, to notice our breath, to sink deep into reflection and meditation or prayer, a time to connect with our deepest desires as we open ourselves to the possibility of a new season of fertile growth. In this time of patient preparation, we can look to the trees for wisdom, as our own Carol Ryder wrote in these words during the winter of 2023. Carol writes, "Many of us have stopped believing in the future. They live only in the moment. Building for a future does not hold a place in their thoughts. They squander relationships and money. Life seems to have no place in their thoughts, no value. But I have noticed that the trees believe in the future. They trust there will be one, and they have a place in it. Throughout our cold, gray, sometimes snowy-filled days, I've observed that the trees put out small, tightly held buds, anticipating the spring that is to come. As the months have passed, the buds were nourished by the trees that held them. They began to swell and get larger. The trees had plans. They kept their belief in the future, that there would be one. Each time I looked upon their branches, they inspired me to be positive, to believe in what was not here, but what was to come. If a tree could believe, then so could I. I trust the forest, spring, and all its newness and renewal and promise was coming, is coming." Thank you, Carol, for these words of perspective and hope. And so in this time when life stirs deep in the darkness, I wish for its each and all the blessings of deep spirituality, the thoughtful celebrations of the season as the light shines in to illuminate our inward lives, so that with clarity we see the needs and possibilities in this time. Stretching out our roots and shoots, may we invite the vital energy to rise. May we find our true home in the roots of our faith and in the nourishing spirit of this community, no matter where we find ourselves. Our temple all space as the earth turns toward the growing light and our lives open like spring flowers to accept the promise of a dawning future. So may it be. Let us rise now in body or spirit to sing together hymn number 83, Winds Be Still. Catherine will play it through once, and then we will follow the words on the screen, whether we are in the sanctuary or on Zoom. Please be seated. As the winter winds move us gradually into stillness, as the storm clouds pass and the light shines in, may we reach deep to stretch our roots and our shoots. May we invite the vital energy to rise, as our temple is all space, our creed all truth, and our ritual works of love. May we find our true home in the roots of our faith and in the nourishing spirit of this community as the earth turns toward the growing light and our lives open like the spring flowers to reach for the promise of a dawning future. So may it be. Amen, and blessed be. And now we'll extinguish the flame. I invite you to join in the words that were written by Reverend Maureen Kaloran. These are not the words we usually use. We're using them for this time because of this special time of restoration and resistance. This is the message of our faith, to act with passion and resistance in the face of injustice, to love with courage in the midst of life's pain. This is the meaning of our chalice flame. May it empower our hearts until we are together again. And now our sung benediction. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. as we end our time together, I invite you to turn to someone near you. I know there's some folks here who are new. We have a visitor from a neighboring congregation. Or to reach out to someone you don't know as well as you might like and greet them and go together to enjoy some refreshments, to get some cake and conversation. May we go in peace and love. Amen. And blessed be.